I've done it.
Curtis! Curtis, I've done it! Get in here! Please? No, look, it's really cool, I promise.
What? Oh, yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool.
But Curtis, look, it's really cool. I can, like, make it blow up like in that Syndicate game, dude. Come on. Come on. Look. Please. I did it. Syndicate is the 2012 reboot of the 1993 isometric real-time tactical game by the same name, as developed by Bullfrog Productions.
You know Bullfrog Productions, they did... help me out.
Bullfrog Productions?
Sim Coaster?
Sim Coaster, there we go.
However, when looking into rebooting their flagship franchise, Bullfrog took the Fallout approach and turned it into the ever-common first-person shooter.
I mean, look at 2012 in gaming. We have Black Ops 2, Dishonored, Far Cry, Borderlands. Every major company released a first-person shooter that year. And against all odds, Syndicate was a big hit.
Evan, hold on, we're gonna have...
What?
Alright, we're gonna have to, just gonna have to redo this line here.
Yeah.
It's good, I like it, but, you might not know is that Syndicate wasn't as good as those games. So, I don't know if you did your research or not, but...
What's research?
Okay, alright, but just redo that last line about, it not being, that good. Okay? Alright, Syndicate, take 2.
But against all odds, Syndicate was shit.
Syndicate is a science fiction first-person shooter where the world is controlled by a few major companies via an electronic chip in their brain. This chip allows them extreme connection to the internet. Think of this as a more fancy, more useful form of Google Glass. Everyone who has a chip is considered important, and those who can't afford it are deemed irrelevant. Kilo, a wired-in cyberpunk science project for one of these companies, is sent on top-secret espionage missions to infiltrate various competitors. When a scientist goes rogue, you are tasked with hunting down the information they leaked and protecting your own sinister corporation from having any friendly competition.
Excuse me, sorry, I mean good corporation, because in a game where you play as a hitman for an all-encompassing technological power, you're never gonna reconsider your position or anything, right?
See, Syndicate tries really hard to be the new Bioshock. It's a fast-paced shooter with limited cutscenes, a power mechanic, and a moral lecture on rampant capitalism and class warfare. That wouldn't be so bad, but even the twists are almost identical. And though I won't spoil it here, if you know what happens at the end of Bioshock 1, you're in for more of the same.
I do have a problem with this though, because when you have a faceless protagonist who never speaks, it's really problematic to have your twist be personal.
Kilo may be who you're viewing the world through, but up until the very end, he felt like an observer of this Wall Street wet dream, until the game changes its mind and tries to get you emotionally invested in a character whose name I had to Google before this review. It prides itself as a tactical shooter similar to Crysis. Being the flagship cyborg of this massive corporation, you're able to hack into just about everyone's head chip and make them do potentially anything. But you can only do about 3. Backfire, which causes enemies' guns to explode, Suicide, which is self-explanatory, and Persuade, which causes enemies to fight on your sides before they also kill themselves.
Wow, 2 out of 3 henchmen agree that being controlled by Kilo will lead to uncontrollable rage and thoughts of suicide. Ask your doctor about using Kilo. Trust us, it's brutal.
Beyond just the chip kills, some of the melee kills feel like a bit of overkill. I'm not saying that because I'm squeamish, but there's something about spinning an enemy's gun around and shooting him upwards to the chin, or curb stomping someone's face that really makes me cringe inside. But to me, this is actually a plus. Kilo is about 3 augmentations away from needing a copy of Asimov's Laws of Robotics, and something about being able to punch someone in the chest so hard that they vomit blood really makes this character feel that mechanical and powerful.
I actually found myself wanting to punch people out instead of shooting them, which is kind of odd for a first-person shooter.
But the shooting isn't half bad, and by half bad I mean fairly standard. But the guns feel surprisingly weighted, and though the cover system is kinda wonky, the game still feels fast-paced enough to keep things interesting even if it can go on a bit long. There are some RPG elements, but they don't do enough to make them worth mentioning, and it feels sort of tossed in as an afterthought because the cool guy in the playground was doing it too.
Syndicate, if Bioshock jumped off a bridge, would you follow it?
I will compliment Syndicate on its graphics though. A large portion of the game is spent in the dark, and when you walk into the sun, everything is washed out like when I emerged from the gaming cave to go to class for once.
It's graphically similar in places to Mirror's Edge, where things will blur out and glare just like they would if you were actually looking at them. And with black leather stomping around, everything kinda looks damp when it catches the light just right. The huge cityscapes do a pretty good job of showing the power of these corporations, but the enemies that inhabit them aren't as varied as they could be, and it'll often turn into you fighting the same masked trooper over and over again. Later in the game though, it inches towards that Blade Runner approach of too much neon per square inch, and it does look pretty good and leaves the door open for some interesting concept, but only acts as a change of scenery for about 2 levels, then returns to bright and perfect buildings.
I feel like that's my biggest problem with Syndicate. It never tries anything too daring. It's just a standard run-of-the-mill cyberpunk shooter, and it never really deviates from the norm.
There's a lot of potential here to create an immersive world and an incredible narrative experience, but it all just feels incredibly normal. It does nothing that offends, but it also doesn't do enough to warrant praise. And honestly, this is partially because it's too short. I played through this game in 2-3 hour sittings. Maybe if they had added more in the story department, there would be more potential for better use of the game mechanics. It just ends before it can become its own game.
All in all, I would say that if you're looking for a pretty standard first-person shooter, Syndicate's your game.
There's enough in it to warrant a decently fun experience with some fast-paced shooting, but with a lackluster story and short playtime, it does suffer slightly. If Syndicate had just an ounce more of ambition and just a pinch more of originality, it would be great, but it doesn't exactly feel like a full gaming experience.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my exercises.
Bioshock. Sorry. The Syndicate.
Yep.
Oh my god. I'm Batman. You're the die hero who lives long enough to see yourself become a villain.